I welcome you all to enlighten ourselves on different perspectives of human security. So we start our third technical session on environmental security. So for the session, I invite Chair Professor Shiladitya Chakrabarti Sir, Department of Political Science, University of Kalyani. I also invite Co-Chair Dr. Debamitra Dev, Associate Professor in Sanskrit, West Bengal Higher Education Service. And we will also be inviting Aladdin Hamid Mahmood Shakir, PhD scholar, who's our resource person for this session. So let's continue and let's hope that we have a good engaging session. Over to you, sir and ma'am.
Thank you so much. Am I audible? It's my proud privilege to chair this session. The theme of this session is environmental security, which is a very important theme. I would like to congratulate the organizers for sensitizing people on this particular issue, because environmental security is extremely important as it impedes upon human security, because if there is an environmental degradation, it will definitely impact the individual as well as the society. So having said that, I would like to invite our first speaker. Her name is Indrani Guha from Rashakti Devi College. Is she here?
I am the co-author, I think, professor.
Yeah, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Respected chairperson, co-chairperson, and everybody present. So, I will be presenting my PPT on decoding the concept of sustainable, green, and ethical tourism in Shantiniketan. This is basically a tourist spot in West Bengal, in the district of Birbhum. And I will focus on the need of responsible tourism and ethical tourism in present day and how it can improve the economic condition. What sustainable tourism focuses on, it is basically to respect the local people with a synthesis of protecting the cultural heritage and achieving socio-economic benefits, and at the same time reversing the effects of climate change and giving some positive impact to the environment. The literature review, if you can go through it, it summarizes into the fact that today, in order to achieve sustainable development, responsible tourism is very much important. And in West Bengal, we can see this is mainly concentrated in the northern districts of the state and very less in the southern or the western parts. So I have focused my study in one of the western districts of West Bengal to understand how it can alleviate poverty over there by this kind of tourism. I have already explained this. All of you must have heard about the Sundarbans. So in the southern part, only Sundarban and Purulia has depicted certain pictures of responsible tourism, and the northern part, that is the Darjeeling Himalaya region, which is very famous for responsible tourism, but it has not imparted to much parts of Birbhum and Bankura. The main objectives of the study are to study the initiatives taken by the homestays over there or the resorts, and to study how it has included the local community to give them some livelihood security. The methodology followed are basically in-depth interviews with the respondents, the hotel owners or the resort owners, managers, the local communities, and also women and the tourists. And the secondary data includes library work, scholarly articles, and related readings. So there was a model proposed by Mihlak in 2016, that is a AAA model, which focuses on how to sensitize a community to go into responsible tourism and then build certain things, and how it can implement certain sustainable goals. So I have taken inspiration from that model, and I have included a 3-step model which includes sensitization of the local community or someone from the mainstream community, like in corporate, who are willing to resign from their job and take up some business ventures, and then planning how to build some resort and homestays along the line, and the implementation process. So this is basically the study area. You can see Shantiniketan, and I have chosen 4 homestays, which is in and around that part of Shantiniketan and much more towards that Ballabpur Wildlife Sanctuary. So this is the first homestay. This is Jetwan Peace Farm Stay. This is the second one, Rare Earth. The owner actually owns several hotel chains in Kolkata. This is Mora Mart. There is a model called Mora Model, which is very important in initiating the process of responsible tourism. And this is Aro Akash, which means some more sky. So the main factors which are common in all these 4 resorts are farmstead. That is, you can stay within the resort and enjoy the environment of a farm. You can grow your own, you can see that they're growing the crops that is fresh to the kitchen, and the poultry. Then food forest, which is a naturally grown forest where they can sustain all the food needs. And solar power, they are not fully solar powered enabled, but almost 70 to 80%. Women empowerment and involvement of the local communities. And I have also seen women entrepreneurship coming up in this, because 4 of them have women entrepreneurs. Like Jetwan has got the single women entrepreneur, and there are 2 or 3 women coming to join this venture. And this is the integrated approach, the SPI model, where I have talked about sensitizing the community. As we can take an example of Jetwan or Rare Earth, where the entrepreneurs has been sensitized by seeing the development in the sustainable development goals, and then they have planned to build certain resorts, and now they are implementing this by providing awareness programs and workshops to students or budding entrepreneurs. The constraints and limitations, this is my last slide. So low customer and tourist demand for sustainable responsible tourism, because it is costly, a bit costly than the budget hotels. And the policy framework, which is not very conjugal towards development of this. And I have also said that this model can be utilized in some other areas, geographical location, to understand the efficacy, and I would be eager to do that. So I would acknowledge my college, because the project grant has been given by the college, and my co-author, the principal of the college. And lastly, I would like to thank IIHSG, Nandini especially, for providing me with this opportunity. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Banerjee. Then Vijayashree Vishwanath. Vijayashree is an assistant professor in Maharaja Sayajirao University of Baroda, and she would be speaking on the issue of a comprehensive analysis of the interrelationship between resource conflicts and human security.
Yes. Very good morning, all of you. First of all, I would like to thank Chair and the IIHSG for giving me this opportunity to present on my topic, which is the comprehensive analysis of the interrelationship between human security and resource conflicts. So when you understand resources, we know that ever since even the pre-colonial times and even till today, resources have always been a major agent while understanding conflicts across region, having a ripple effect on the region and across the world in continents, and thereby its impact on human security, environmental security, livelihood security in turn. So the relationship that they both share has an instrumental impact on the comprehensive security of the overall region, which is of course the understanding of national security which we now have, wherein we have moved beyond the traditional understanding of security and the non-traditional understanding, wherein we incorporate both the ideas together and try to look at the region from a comprehensive perspective, thereby giving the idea of comprehensive security. So resources have always been a concern across places, and ever since globalization, we know the way states have tried to tap manpower and at the same time different resources across regions, not just within their own region but also in the regions surrounding them. So the states which actually were decolonized faced a lot of problems of resource conflicts, wherein we've seen conflicts in Colombia over cocoa plant, Southern Africa over diamonds, Democratic Republic of Congo over gold, Latin America over lithium, Middle East over oil, and so on. We know that there have always been resource conflicts across region. A conflict zone is always driven by resource competition, and they have a ripple effect on the entire region, affecting the whole world at large. Resources have been a major driving force of conflicts, and to understand the nature of such conflicts and its influence on human security becomes very inevitable Because with the impact of climate change happening across the world, resource conflict coupled with climate change is going to put a lot of impact on the human security in general. The United Nations Partnership for Goals defines resource conflict as a social or political conflict where natural resources contribute to the onset, aggravation or sustaining of the conflict due to disagreements or competition over the access and management of natural resources. So we know that across the world, with environment becoming a more important aspect and with AI and cybersecurity also becoming a concern, tapping of important natural resources becomes very important for states in order to showcase their power and their national interest thereby. So power dynamics, colonization, industrialization, military forces, nuclear warfare, globalization, climate changes have all been some of the very important reasons for the rise in resource conflicts as well. The power of a state is determined by the hold over a natural resource or man-made resources, and the states which have had access to natural resources were considered powerful due to their monopoly over a certain resource. For example, when England had hold over coal, or say for example waterways, all of this had a huge impact on their national security and national power. So for these things, when you understand how do we cater to the problems of resource conflicts, you need to desecuritize a certain amount of this understanding so as to build about a better access so as to give a better platform when you're having conflict resolutions through arbitration, mediation and conciliation. So this is where I end my topic. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
Richa Mittal, research scholar. Yes. Richa would be speaking on environmental protection in Vedic literature, insights and practices.
Good morning to chairperson and co-chairperson and all other participants. I am Richa Mittal, a research scholar from Jivaji University, Gwalior. The topic of my presentation is Environmental Protection in Vedic Literature, Insight and Practices. We are fortunate that we have inherited environmental conservation from India's Advait Vedic philosophy. Our philosopher sages have always tried to establish a close relationship between man and environment by worshipping nature and leading an ideal lifestyle. But in today's materialistic age, due to increasing pollution, environment has become a serious topic of discussion. Today again, there is a need to make effort to spread the Vedic consciousness of environmental conservation among the common people and especially among the young generation. Meaning of environment. The word environment, Paryavaran, is made up of two words where Pari means surround and Avran means to cover or surround. Every living being in the world is depend on the environment around him. In this periphery of the environment, air, fire, water, earth and all directions, mountains, clouds, vegetation, animal are included. In our Vedic literature, we have been inspired for environmental protection. That divinity has also been shown in the 5 elements, the basic components of the environment, in order to make the 5 elements earth, water, fire, air, sky free from pollution. The first element is air. In the Earth-Veda Samhita, the earth has been called as mother and man has been called as son. Yante madhyam prithvi yach nabasya yast urjastantvu samv bhuvu tasuno deha yabhi naha pavasva mata bhumi putro aham prithvya. Means that is just as a son protects his parents diligently, in the same way a human should protect the mother of the earth. Atharvaveda again hints not to exploit it too much. The second element is water. Water is life, water is the base of life. Seeing the importance of water, Vedic literature has also prescribed the use of clean water. Apohista, mayo bhuvista, na urje tadathar. Water is the prestige of the whole world. The third element is fire element. According to the Vedic tradition, the component of the environment is the fire element, which is also play a vital role to make the environment free from pollution. Just as our body is immaterial without the element of fire, in the same way the outer world is also indifferent without the element of fire. The fourth element is air element. Air has a close relationship between the environment and our lives because the process of breathing is possible only through air. In the Rig Veda, the word Vishwa Bhashej has been used for Vayu. Avat vahi bheshjam vivat vahi yatapaha tom hi vishva bheshjo divanam dud iyase means a wish has been made to remove the polluted air from the air by calling it Vish Bheshja and make pure air flow. The last element is sky element, and the role of sky in environmental protection is also commendable. To protect the environment, it is absolutely necessary to protect the ozone layer in the sky. And in conclusion, after knowing all the above facts, we can say that to make the environment free from pollution, we have to once again take refuge in the Vedas. We'll have to return to the Vedas in the era of modernization. Man has forgotten his existence, and that is human existence is from the Vedas. And in last, Sarve bhavantu sukhina, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kasyit dukbhag bhavet. It means everyone can remain happy and healthy on when our environment is healthy and wealthy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rita. The next speaker would be Divyaka Sripal, student, Maharaja Surajmal Institute. Are you there? Yeah. Kindly try to conclude within 6 minutes. Okay?
Sure, sir. Good morning, everyone. I'm Divita Shriyapal. I'm going to present my today's paper on Partnership for the Planet, Modi and Macron for a Greener World. So this paper discusses India's foreign policy under the tenure of Prime Minister Narendra Modi and has undergone major significant and drastic changes. It has adopted a new foreign and economic policy of engaging in new relations with developed West and the European nations, as well as maintaining its previous relation and friendship with the global South and other nations. Under Modi's leadership since 2014, India has strengthened its strategic partnership with the United States of America, as well as balancing its existing relations with Russia and China. It is based on the priority to uplift India's global It is based on India's priority to uplift India's global stature, promote economic growth and diplomacy. During this phase, India has also strengthened its bond and relation with France on various aspects, ranging from diplomatic channels, defense deals, example Rafale firefighters, Scorpion submarines and joint naval exercises. It also focused and promoted the environment and sustainable access of development. This paper discusses Horizon 2047 between the two countries in the areas of defense and defense, technology, maritime and security, as well as other renewable and civil nuclear energy. Both India and France under Horizon 2047 plan to work together in favor of international peace and stability and a commitment for rule-based Indo-Pacific region. This collaboration for greener world focuses on climate objectives, combating climate change, reducing pollution and preserving biodiversity. France has been a key partner in supporting India's urban and ecological transition, promoting sustainable development and ensuring civil inclusion. This collaboration has enhanced both nations' commitment to the sustainable future. To strengthen the existing mechanism, one significant initiative in this regard is the International Solar Alliance, co-founded by India and France, which aims to mobilize global efforts against climate change through solar energy development. ISA was conceptualized during the COP21 conference in 2015 and now has 119 member countries. Its primary goal was to develop cost-effective solar power energy solutions that help reduce carbon emissions. France has also played a key role in supporting India's energy transition through its technical expertise and economic support. France has also helped India launch numerous renewable energy projects. The French electric company Électricité France (EDF) has collaborated with Nuclear Power Corporation of India. Okay, so in the end, I'd like to conclude that the India-France partnership, as embodied by under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi and Macron and President Macron, has blossomed into a vibrant and purposeful alliance. This reciprocal state visits include President Macron's memorable visit to India's 2018 and 2019 visits.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
The last speaker of today's panel is it's a joint paper by Dr. Urvashi Mishra and Suraksha Narayan. Are they there? This paper is on assessment of future waste disposal practices in selected higher educational institutions of Vadodara city.
So, furniture waste management.
Excuse me, can you help me with this?
Very good morning to all of you, to the chair, co-chair, Nandini ma'am, and the audience. So, my name is Suraksha Narayan. I am from the Maharaja Sahajirao University of Baroda. My topic is assessment of furniture waste disposal practices in selected educational institutions of Vadodara city. So, whenever we talk about environmental security, there are lots of various broad aspects in the environment security. The first we always think about is climate change, another is waste management. So waste management is a very broad aspect. For example, there have been a lot of studies about water waste management, solid waste management, but there is one management which is still lacking, and that is furniture waste management, and especially in higher educational institutions. So the traditional methods of furniture waste management are closed storage, dumping in landfills, open storage, incineration, as you can see on the screen. If we talk about the literature review, there is no study in the India where furniture waste management is being studied. There have been studies about recycling, upcycling, and other decorative aspects, but nobody is talking about the policies, the waste management procedures. So therefore, this study was taken. If we talk about the SDGs, taking considerations SDG 11, SDG 12, and SDG 17, such as sustainable cities and communities, responsible production and consumption, and partnership for goals, this present study to assess problems faced by selected educational institution and propose sustainable solution for management of furniture waste. So if we talk about why this study, what are the dangers of furniture waste? So long deposition period is one of the reason why furniture waste management is important to study. Environmental pollution, health and safety hazard, resource depletion, and of course the visual pollution. So aim of the study was to assess the furniture waste disposal practices in selected higher educational institutions in Vadodara city. The specific objects were to assess the disposable practices adopted by selected higher educational institutions, to assess challenges in managing furniture waste in selected higher educational institution, to suggest measures to cope up with the challenges in managing furniture waste. So methodology, the research design was descriptive research design, locale was Vadodara city, unit of inquiry was the higher educational institution authorities, sampling procedure was purposive sampling, sampling size was 18 higher educational institution, the mode of data collection was interview schedule, and data analysis was descriptive analysis. So this is the findings and discussion. So we can see that none of the chosen educational institution commented on the furniture waste disposal in landfills. We don't know if they did it or not because they did not comment on it. So also I would like to tell you that none of the selected higher educational institution incinerated or sent for incineration furniture waste as a method of furniture disposal. There were 13 selected higher educational institutions who sold their furniture waste to scrap dealers who offered the highest price for the disposed furniture. Also, the selected higher educational institutions dispose the furniture waste on 5 yearly basis. If we talk about the challenges faced by selected higher educational institutions, as we can see, there is 100% absence of sustainable protocols, which is, I think, is an issue. There were absence of policies, as we can see, and also that there were storage constraints faced by the higher educational institutions. I would like you all to see the situation currently in the furniture waste present in the educational institutions. There are different departments, as you can see, the chair and the co-chair. These are the current situation of the higher educational institutions of furniture waste, which is just lying there. There is no policies being done to do something about it. So these are few recommendations mentioned in the paper that we can implement the 3 R's: recycle, refurbish, and reuse. There should be development of policies, of course, because there was 100% absence of protocols. Obviously, raising awareness and proficiency, assigning dedicated staff, and streamlining collection and transportation system, because there was lack of transportation of furniture waste in the selected higher educational institutions as well.
So, Raksha, thank you.
So let me just give one information. That this particular study, when we did it, there was one objective was to upcycle maximum furniture waste. So we found only in just one department we found 2 tons of furniture waste, just in the department of one educational institution, and we were able to upcycle the furniture waste, and somehow nearly half a ton we upcycle. This particular study was also appreciated by the government of Gujarat, by the CM. And you can see a few products made by us, our student, as being interior designers, and it is placed in one of the educational institution. This is the certificate by the CM of the government of Gujarat. Here is the references. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Extremely enlightening.
Thank you.
Now I would like to open the floor to any questions, if there are any questions you want to ask. Most of the presentations have been very innovative.
Namah Sadaspatai. In the concluding part of this session, I like to quote a phrase from our scripture, which is Sheshohi Avashishyate. That means the last remains. Now the question is, what is the last that remains here? I think it is impressions. Impressions of wonderful ideas structured through proper thought process and expressed in a methodical way. In the current scenario, environmental crisis is a much debated topic. So the concept as well as the discussions about environmental security is inevitable. Some good papers discussing the same were presented here. I like to thank and congratulate all participants for their participation and audience for their patience. Moreover, I like to thank respected chairperson to conduct the whole session in a proper and appropriate way. Finally, I thank the organizing committee, especially Dr. Nandini Vasisht, for her tremendous hard work and support. Thank you all. Thank you.
Over to you, Nandini. You can take over.
Thank you, ma'am and sir, for such an engaging session. I'm sure a lot of us were entitled by different perspectives. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Nandini Vasisht to felicitate our chair, Professor Shiladitya Chakrabarti, Department of Political Science, University of Kalyani. Now, ma'am will felicitate our co-chair, Dr. Deba Mitra De, Associate Professor in Sanskrit, West Bengal Higher Education Service. Thank you, ma'am and sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
I hope I finished on time.
Oh, sir, you are perfect. So your session was last yesterday, and today's it was first, and everything went on time.